In today's episode, we're examining 5 terrifying cases where wild animals invaded cities with deadly results. From a Houston backyard where a coyote snatched a 4-year-old boy, to the streets of Johannesburg where a leopard stalked a taxi driver. But first, we begin in Texas, where one family's ordinary summer evening became a nightmare. August 3, 2019. The northwestern edge of Houston, Texas was experiencing one of the most severe summer droughts in recent memory. The once flowing creeks that sustained local wildlife had dried to dusty channels, forcing animals to venture deeper into suburban areas in search of water and food. The Melrose family's neighborhood sat precariously on this urban wilderness boundary, with undeveloped woodlots and green belts providing perfect corridors for wildlife to infiltrate residential areas. The Melrose family had moved to this quiet suburban development just 6 months earlier, attracted by the spacious yards and proximity to nature. Their backyard backed up against one of these wooded areas, which they initially saw as a feature rather than a threat. 4-year-old Jordan was a curious, energetic boy who loved exploring the outdoors. His parents had installed a swing set and sandbox where he spent hours playing, always under the watchful eye of his mother or father. In the weeks leading up to that fateful Saturday, residents had reported increased coyote sightings in the neighborhood. Local wildlife officials had issued warnings about keeping small pets indoors and securing trash cans, but no aggressive encounters had been reported. The drought had made these normally shy animals bolder in their search for food and water, but they typically avoided human contact. That evening, as the Texas heat began to subside with the setting sun, the Melrose family was enjoying a typical weekend at home. Jordan's mother was preparing dinner, occasionally checking on her son through the kitchen window as he played with his toys in the backyard. Jordan's father had gone to pick up some groceries, leaving mother and son at home. The family's small dog Pepper was inside the house, barking occasionally at something unseen beyond the fence. What the family didn't realize was that a young male coyote had been frequenting their neighborhood for weeks. Unlike most of its kind, this particular animal had become habituated to human presence through inadvertent feeding. Neighbors had left pet food outside, and unsecured garbage had provided easy meals. Wildlife biologists would later suspect the animal might have been suffering from an early stage of rabies, explaining its uncharacteristically bold behavior. At approximately 6:45 in the evening, Jordan's mother stepped away from the window briefly to answer a phone call. She could still hear her son talking to himself as he played, a reassuring sound that suddenly transformed into a terrified scream. Dropping the phone, she rushed to the back door. The coyote had slipped through a small gap in the fence where it met the ground near the wooded area. Initially, it had approached cautiously, perhaps drawn by the child's small stature and rapid movements, which triggered its predatory instinct. When Jordan spotted the animal and tried to run toward the house, the coyote lunged forward, knocking the boy to the ground. By the time Jordan's mother reached the yard, the coyote had bitten her son multiple times on his arms and neck. The animal, startled by the mother's screams and approach, backed away momentarily but didn't flee. Instead, it circled aggressively, showing none of the fear of humans typical of healthy coyotes. The mother grabbed a nearby garden tool and swung it wildly at the animal, finally driving it back toward the fence gap. As the coyote retreated, the mother scooped up her severely injured son and ran inside, locking the door behind them. Blood soaked through Jordan's t-shirt from multiple puncture wounds. She immediately called 911, desperately trying to stop the bleeding while waiting for emergency services to arrive. Paramedics reached the home within minutes, but Jordan had already lost a dangerous amount of blood from a bite that severed his carotid artery. Despite their best efforts to stabilize him during the rush journey to the hospital, the 4-year-old was pronounced dead shortly after arrival at the emergency room. The community was stunned by the tragedy. Wildlife officials set traps in the area and within 2 days captured a visibly unhealthy male coyote matching the mother's description. Testing confirmed the animal was in the early stages of rabies, explaining its abnormally aggressive behavior. The incident was classified as an extraordinarily rare predatory attack, one of only a handful of fatal coyote incidents ever recorded in North America. In the aftermath, the neighborhood underwent significant changes. The Homeowners Association implemented new fencing requirements, ensuring no gaps existed that could allow wildlife to enter yards. The city launched an aggressive wildlife management program and educational campaign about safely coexisting with urban wildlife. Residents were instructed never to feed wildlife even inadvertently, and to report any animals showing unusual behavior immediately. For the Melrose family, no measure could undo their loss. They eventually relocated, unable to remain in a home haunted by such tragedy. A small memorial garden was planted in the neighborhood park, where a plaque bearing Jordan's name reminds residents of the rare but real dangers that can emerge when human development encroaches on wildlife habitat, and of a little boy whose life was cut tragically short by an extraordinary confluence of unfortunate circumstances. The incident stands as a sobering reminder that while fatal wildlife attacks in urban settings are extremely rare, the combination of drought, habitat loss, and habituation to humans can occasionally lead to devastating consequences, forever changing the lives of those involved. Jordan's story reminds us that even suburban fences can't always keep nature at bay. For Malcolm Tuwani, the pre-dawn streets of Johannesburg seemed safe until the moment spotted shadows moved between parked cars, a leopard's territory now extending to the city's edge. June 17, 2011, the outskirts of Johannesburg, South Africa were shrouded in darkness. The Soweto township, with its densely packed homes and narrow streets, was just beginning to stir. Drought had plagued the region for months, turning the once lush landscape into parched earth. Extensive deforestation near Krugersdorp had devastated natural habitats, pushing desperate wildlife closer to human settlements than ever before. Malcolm Tuwani, a 52-year-old taxi driver, was returning home after a grueling 12-hour night shift. A respected figure in his community, Malcolm had driven taxis for over 20 years, navigating the complex streets of Johannesburg with an expertise that earned him loyal customers. His eldest son had just started university, a source of immense pride for Malcolm, who had sacrificed much to provide educational opportunities for his children. That fateful morning, he parked his white Toyota sedan on the street as usual, just 50 meters from his modest brick home. The streetlights cast elongated shadows as he gathered his belongings and began the short walk to his gate. Unknown to Malcolm, the environmental pressures had pushed a leopard into the urban edges of Johannesburg. Leopards, highly adaptable and naturally nocturnal, had begun targeting stray dogs and goats in the township. Several residents had reported missing pets and unusual sounds in the night, but authorities had dismissed these as routine urban problems rather than signs of a dangerous predator. Leopards are Africa's most adaptable big cats, capable of surviving in diverse environments from mountains to urban fringes. Unlike lions, they hunt alone and rely on stealth rather than speed. A fully grown male leopard typically weighs between 60 and 70 kilograms and possesses jaw strength powerful enough to drag prey twice its own weight up into trees. Their rosette-spotted coats provide excellent camouflage, allowing them to disappear against dappled light and shadow, even in urban environments where walls and drainage ditches offer hiding places. As Malcolm approached his gate at approximately 4:30 in the morning, the leopard was crouched behind a low concrete wall adjacent to his property. When Malcolm passed within striking distance, the leopard launched itself at him. The attack was silent and lightning fast, giving Malcolm no chance to react or defend himself. The leopard's jaws clamped onto Malcolm's neck, its canines puncturing vital blood vessels. The bite delivered approximately 300 to 500 pounds of pressure per square inch, causing immediate and severe damage. Malcolm had no time to call for help as the leopard's weight drove him into the ground. His body slammed against the dirt road, the impact causing severe additional trauma. The leopard's front claws dug into Malcolm's shoulder for stability, penetrating through his jacket. Neighbors heard the commotion but mistook the sounds for a robbery, a common occurrence in the area. No one ventured outside to investigate. The leopard maintained its grip on Malcolm's neck, ensuring its prey was immobilized. Blood pooled beneath Malcolm's body as the predator began to drag him toward a nearby drainage ditch, following the instinctive behavior to secure its kill. The leopard's claws tore through Malcolm's clothing and lacerated his back as it dragged him approximately 15 meters across the rough terrain. By this point, Malcolm had lost consciousness from blood loss and trauma. His body was limp as the leopard attempted to pull him into the narrow concrete drainage channel. A passing delivery truck's headlights illuminated the scene, startling the leopard and causing it to retreat into the shadows. The driver spotted Malcolm's body and immediately alerted authorities. But by the time emergency services arrived, Malcolm had already died from blood loss and traumatic injuries. The official time of death was recorded as 4:47 in the morning. In the aftermath, wildlife authorities launched a search for the leopard, setting traps throughout the township. 3 days later, they captured a male leopard approximately 2 kilometers from the attack site. DNA testing confirmed it was responsible for Malcolm's death. The incident sparked concern in the community and raised questions about urban wildlife management during environmental crises. Malcolm's family received compensation from the local government, though they claimed that officials had ignored previous warnings about predator sightings in residential areas. As Johannesburg grappled with this rare urban predator attack, halfway across the world in Lake Tahoe, California, Tasha Greystone was preparing for a peaceful weekend getaway at a remote Airbnb. The 27-year-old photographer had no way of knowing that the beautiful wilderness surrounding her rental cabin harbored a hungry black bear that was desperately searching for food before hibernation. October 12, 2015, Lake Tahoe, California. The serene mountain landscape was ablaze with autumn colors as temperatures dropped across the Sierra Nevada mountains. Nestled among towering pines stood a secluded 2-story cabin, its wooded exterior blending with the surrounding forest. The property, popular on Airbnb for its isolation, promised a peaceful retreat from urban life. Tasha Greystone, a 27-year-old graphic designer from San Francisco, had booked the cabin for a solo getaway. Colleagues described her as hard-working and creative, often pulling late nights to meet deadlines. This trip was her chance to decompress. She arrived Monday afternoon, unpacked groceries, and settled in. That evening, she prepared dinner, opened wine, and left windows cracked for mountain air, a decision that would prove fatal. Earlier that day, Tasha had hiked along the nearby Eagle Falls Trail, posting photos of the spectacular views to her social media accounts. Finally disconnecting, she wrote, unaware of the wildlife warnings posted at the trailhead. Local rangers had documented increased bear activity in the area, with 3 cabin break-ins reported in the previous week alone. The drought had pushed bears to seek alternative food sources, bringing them dangerously close to vacation properties throughout the basin. The cabin's owner, Martin Reeves, had installed bear-proof trash containers outside but failed to include proper wildlife safety instructions in the rental information. A simple reminder to close and lock all windows might have prevented what was about to unfold. Tasha's friends would later recall her love of fresh air and how she always slept with windows open, even in her San Francisco apartment. Black bears in Tahoe had been particularly active that fall. A summer drought reduced their natural food sources before hibernation. Wildlife officials had issued warnings about proper food storage, but many visitors remained unaware. Adult black bears can weigh up to 500 pounds with remarkable strength when motivated by hunger. At 2:30 in the morning, a male black bear detected food scents through the partially open kitchen window. The animal, weighing around 350 pounds, had been foraging nearby properties for weeks. It pushed the window wider and climbed inside, drawn by granola, fruit, and groceries left on the counter. The bear had developed a pattern of behavior that wildlife biologists call food conditioning, associating human structures with easy meals. This particular animal had already broken into 2 vehicles and a garage in the previous month, according to wildlife officials who later examined its DNA and tracking records. Tasha, asleep upstairs, woke to movement below. Assuming another guest, she descended to investigate. At the bottom step, she came face to face with the massive bear. The animal, startled by her sudden appearance, immediately became defensive. Tasha backed away, but the bear advanced. When she turned to flee, it lunged, striking her with its paw and sending her crashing into the dining table. The impact fractured ribs and dislocated her shoulder. As she attempted to escape, the bear bit her leg, causing severe damage and heavy bleeding. Blood pooled on the hardwood floor as the bear continued its attack. Its claws tore through her torso, causing massive internal injuries. The attack lasted several minutes as the bear mauled her repeatedly. By the time it returned to the food, Tasha had succumbed to her injuries, lying motionless beside the overturned furniture. The bear ransacked the kitchen, tearing open cabinets and refrigerator doors. It consumed nearly all available food before moving to the living room, where it destroyed furniture and personal belongings. Evidence suggested the animal remained in the cabin for several hours before finally departing through the same window it had entered. A neighbor walking his dog the next morning noticed the open window and damaged exterior, but assumed it was routine maintenance. This critical delay meant that emergency responders weren't called until hours later, though forensic analysis would later confirm that immediate medical intervention wouldn't have saved Tasha given the severity of her injuries. The property owner discovered Tasha's body the following afternoon during a maintenance check. The bear had consumed most of the food before exiting, leaving devastation behind. Wildlife officials tracked the animal using DNA evidence and euthanized it 3 days later. The incident sparked changes to Airbnb policies in wildlife-prone areas, requiring hosts to provide safety information and proper food storage. Tasha's family established a foundation to educate visitors about wildlife safety in mountain communities. Lake Tahoe authorities reported that while bear encounters were common, fatal attacks remained extremely rare, with Tasha's death being the first recorded in the region in over 2 decades. The California Department of Fish and Wildlife subsequently launched an aggressive public awareness campaign targeting vacation rental guests throughout the Sierra Nevada region. While Tasha Greystone's tragic encounter with a black bear prompted changes in vacation rental policies, similar warnings would go unheeded by nature photographer Shauna Behringer, who pitched her tent outside Banff National Park's monitored zone as a massive grizzly tracked the scent of her improperly stored food. October 12, 2022. In the remote wilderness of Banff National Park, Canada, the crisp autumn air carried the scent of pine and the promise of adventure. The Canadian Rockies stood majestically against the darkening sky as Shauna Behringer, a 31-year-old nature photographer from Vancouver, pitched her tent just outside the monitored camping zone. Her partner Alex helped secure their temporary home for the night, unaware that this decision would lead to tragedy. Shauna had built her reputation capturing the raw beauty of North America's wildlife. Her Instagram portfolio showcased breathtaking shots of wolves, moose, and bears in their natural habitats. This particular trip to Banff was meant to add stunning fall foliage and wildlife images to her growing collection. The couple had deliberately chosen a spot away from the crowded designated camping areas, seeking solitude and authentic wilderness experiences. Park rangers had posted numerous warning signs about proper food storage in bear country, but in their haste to set up camp before nightfall, Shauna and Alex made a fatal error. Several protein bars, trail mix, and scented toiletries remained inside their tent, a decision that violated park regulations and would soon attract unwanted attention. Food-conditioned bears had been increasingly approaching the Banff area in recent months. Wildlife officials had documented multiple incidents of bears raiding improperly secured campsites, though no attacks had occurred. The area where Shauna chose to camp had seen 3 bear sightings in the previous week alone. Local rangers had even placed additional warning signs at trailheads, but the couple had arrived after dark and missed these crucial alerts. Grizzly bears in the Banff region typically weigh between 300 to 700 pounds, with males being larger than females. These powerful omnivores possess incredible strength and a sense of smell that can detect food from over a mile away. By late autumn, grizzlies enter hyperphagia, an intense feeding period where they consume thousands of calories daily to prepare for winter hibernation. Their normally cautious nature around humans can be overridden by hunger as winter approaches. At approximately 2:13 in the morning, as the couple slept soundly in their tent, a male grizzly that had previously been hazed by park officials detected the scent of food. The bear, identified later as Bear 164, had been pushed toward human settlements due to territorial disputes with other males and the lure of easy meals. Fresh paw prints discovered the next day showed it had circled the tent several times before making its move. The first indication of danger came as a low, huffing sound outside the tent. Shauna stirred from her sleep, nudging Alex awake. Before either could react, the fabric of their tent ripped open with a violent tearing sound as the grizzly's powerful claws shredded through the nylon material. In the darkness, illuminated only by the beam of a hastily grabbed flashlight, the massive silhouette of the bear loomed over them. The grizzly lunged forward, its jaws clamping down on Shauna's shoulder. Her collarbone shattered as the bear's teeth penetrated deep into muscle tissue. Alex scrambled backward toward the tent opening, screaming for help. The bear, focused entirely on Shauna, dragged her from the sleeping bag. Its claws raked across her torso, causing severe lacerations. Blood saturated the tent floor as Shauna fought desperately, striking at the bear's face. The grizzly responded by shaking her violently, causing catastrophic internal injuries. Within moments, Shauna lost consciousness from the massive blood loss and trauma. Alex managed to escape the tent and climb a nearby tree, where he watched in horror as the bear dragged Shauna's body several meters from the campsite. The grizzly continued to maul her before beginning to feed. Park rangers and emergency responders arrived at the remote location hours later, finding Alex still in the tree, suffering from hypothermia and shock. Shauna's body was recovered the following morning, after the bear had left the area. An investigation revealed that Bear 164 had been previously identified as a problem bear that had been hazed away from campgrounds on multiple occasions but never relocated. Following the attack, wildlife officials tracked the grizzly using DNA evidence from the scene and euthanized it 3 days later. The fatal encounter became the first documented grizzly-caused human death in Banff in over a decade, prompting wildlife officials to review their bear management protocols. Local guides reported a noticeable increase in visitors requesting bear safety information in the months following Shauna's death. As the tragedy of Shauna Beringer faded from headlines, in the urban sprawl of Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, security guard Rahim Gabraselassie was about to face his own encounter with the animal kingdom when an escaped lion found its way into the city streets. November 17, 2008. The bustling streets of Addis Ababa, Ethiopia fell quiet as night descended upon the city. The capital's outskirts, where industrial zones meet residential areas, are typically deserted after dark except for the occasional security guard making their rounds. The area was dotted with poorly regulated facilities, including an illegal exotic animal compound that would soon become the epicenter of tragedy. Rahim Gebrselassie, a 37-year-old security guard, had been working at a warehouse complex for nearly 3 years. A father of 2 with a reputation for reliability, Rahim had taken the night shift to earn extra money for his family. The job was usually uneventful, checking locks, monitoring for trespassers, and making hourly rounds through the dimly lit alleys between buildings. That night, however, something was different. Several stray dogs in the area were unusually agitated, barking incessantly at the shadows. Unknown to Rahim, a male lion had escaped from a nearby illegal exotic animal facility earlier that evening. The owner had been collecting dangerous animals for years, housing them in substandard conditions with inadequate security measures. A combination of poor enclosure design and negligent supervision had allowed the predator to slip away unnoticed. African lions are apex predators, weighing between 330 and 420 pounds, with powerful muscles designed for taking down large prey. In their natural habitat, they hunt primarily at dawn, dusk, and night, relying on stealth rather than speed for most of their approach. The escaped lion, likely stressed and disoriented in the unfamiliar urban environment, had been moving through the shadows, following the paths of least resistance, drainage ditches, alleyways, and vacant lots. At approximately 2:15 in the morning, Rahim was making his routine patrol near the back of the warehouse complex. He carried only a flashlight and a radio as he walked between 2 large storage buildings. The narrow passage was poorly lit, with several dumpsters creating areas of complete darkness. As Rahim approached one such area, his flashlight beam briefly caught a reflection of eyes in the darkness. The attack happened without warning. The lion charged from approximately 15 feet away, a distance it covered in less than a second. The initial impact knocked Rahim to the ground, his flashlight skittering across the pavement. The lion, following instinctual hunting behavior, immediately targeted Rahim's neck and face, a technique evolved to quickly immobilize prey by cutting off air supply rather than causing immediate blood loss. Rahim's cries for help echoed briefly through the complex. A night watchman in a building across the street later reported hearing shouts followed by what he described as terrible sounds, but was too frightened to investigate or even look out his window. The entire attack likely lasted less than a minute. The lion's powerful jaws closed around Rahim's neck, cutting off his airway. Death would have come relatively quickly from asphyxiation, with unconsciousness occurring within 10 to 20 seconds. After Rahim was no longer moving, the lion dragged his body a short distance behind one of the dumpsters, a natural behavior to move prey away from the open and into a more secluded location. Evidence at the scene suggested the lion remained with the body for several hours before moving on. Though feeding was minimal, another indication of the predator's disoriented state in the unfamiliar environment. Rahim's body was discovered at 5:45 in the morning by another security guard arriving for the morning shift. Authorities were immediately called and police secured the area. Local wildlife officials and police officers conducted a careful search of the surrounding neighborhood, eventually locating the lion in an abandoned construction site approximately 400 meters from the attack location. Given the urban setting and immediate danger to the public, officials made the decision to euthanize the animal rather than attempt capture. A police marksman dispatched the lion with a single shot. The subsequent investigation confirmed it had escaped from an illegal exotic animal facility owned by a local businessman with connections to wildlife trafficking. The facility owner was arrested and faced multiple charges, including criminal negligence resulting in death and illegal possession of protected wildlife. He was eventually sentenced to 8 years in prison, though many in the community felt the punishment was insufficient given the preventable nature of the tragedy. Rahim's family struggled in the aftermath. While they received some compensation through the court, the loss of the family's primary provider created lasting hardship. His widow eventually relocated with their children to live with relatives in another part of the city. The incident prompted a brief period of increased enforcement of wildlife regulations in Addis Ababa, though critics noted that systemic issues and oversight remained largely unaddressed. The tragic death of Rahim Gabrielasi serves as a stark reminder of the dangers that can emerge when wild predators enter human spaces through negligence and illegal activity. Yet his story would not be the last of its kind. Just months later in northern India, forest ranger Vikram Singh would encounter a similar fate while investigating reports of a tiger near the edge of a national park. The predator's unusual behavior would raise questions about the increasing conflicts between humans and wildlife in rapidly developing regions. If these stories left you wanting more, click on the next video appearing on your screen now for another shocking wildlife encounter that will leave you speechless.